this turned out freaking amazing. Hey guys, how's it going? And today I'm going to show you how I'm going to prepare this engine block for over 600 wheel horsepower. So there's very good design on this K series engine, which is a KL V6. It's a split case crank design, which is really good. Very, very strong bottom end. So I've got rods and pistons in it that are meant to do over 600 horsepower. So that is all checked, but there's a problem. So right here is the deck, and this is open deck on this engine, and to me that is not good enough for 600 horsepower. I've actually had more than 500 to the wheels before, because after the dyno I found a huge leak in the intake, so it was making more power afterwards. But anyways, I want to make sure it's gonna last, so I'm going to close this deck with epoxy. So you can actually get machine inserts that go in there that are billet, but I think I can do it out of epoxy. That's what I'm going to try. So I'm literally going to put sugar into the cooling jacket here, and I'm going to fill it up 80% of the way to the top, because I want to make the top rigid. I still want cooling capabilities. So the sugar is going to be a gap. I'm going to put the epoxy on top of it and then drill holes in the actual same spot that the flow was going through, the head gasket. So it'll still have coolant going through here. Just the very top 3/4 of an inch will be epoxied with holes in it for it to flow. So that's gonna give me a closed deck block, which is awesome. That is going to really increase the strength of the block, and I will feel much more confident running this. I do think this would run 600 to the wheels, but I don't think there's much left. So I want this stuff to last. So I'm going to do this block with the epoxy. I'm going to do this block with the epoxy down here. And then the one in the Suicide MX3 right here, I'm going to do it to that one as well. But I'm going to build my engines first out of here so I can keep the car together. This is a running and driving vehicle right now, other than one fitting, but it's nice to keep things together, and then I'll have a fresh engine for it. So this car and engine in the rear made 460 to the wheels on 26 PSI, and then on the street I put it to 35, so it was making about 500 to the wheels at least. I think that's the limit, so I need to do something else. And while I'm building this engine for a spare and that one for a spare, I'm going to have closed decks with epoxy. People have done this before, believe it or not, and pushed well over into the thousands of horsepower per 4 cylinders. So this might work. This is the best time to do it. So I'm literally just gonna do it. Simple as that. Is I'm going to sand the best I can without doing the face, obviously, in there, just so it is a little scratched up, so it's a little bit better of like a grab onto the cylinder wall and the actual like cooling jacket. So I'll do that after I tape everything, because I don't want to scratch everything and get epoxy on it. And then I will level out the engine perfectly, and I can rotate this engine crane. So I've got to really basically level it this way, and then I can do the rotation this way, no problem. And then I can fill it with the sugar and an epoxy, and obviously cap off some stuff first. I will show you exactly how I'm gonna do that as well. That's a cooling jacket way to block off as well. But gotta get my water pump off, tape it off, sand it, then it'll be epoxy time, and I'll show you exactly how I'm gonna do it. Okay, so this is all taped up really good. So now what I'm going to do is go in there with a screwdriver and really scratch at the cylinder walls on the outside and then the block on the inside, and make it so that the epoxy is gonna actually grab as much as it can, because if it's just completely smooth surface, it won't really bite as much. So I'm gonna go around, really scratch around and get some gouges. It's gonna be really difficult to do that, but I did some in there. As you can see, it's got a little bit of scratches and stuff, so. All right, so I got everything cleaned in there, brake clean. That's all done. Now I have to block up the water pump holes. One is here and one is here. Completely cover that. Salt or sugar is gonna go in. You can use salt or sugar to have the actual buffer for the epoxies, because what you're gonna do is not go all the way to the bottom with the epoxy, because you need that for coolant. So you're only gonna use the top 3/4 of an inch of this actual piece, and this will need level as well. But first, let's cover those water pump holes. I got each side completely capped. There's no other spots other than this one to remove the fluid. So I actually might do that for when I'm rinsing sugar out, so it's a nice flow. But this one, there's no other holes that it'll be flowing through. So I'll just have to like spray my water through here to get it all clean afterwards. I'm gonna have to get this as level as physically possible in here. So I'm gonna jack the back up of my engine hoist and get that level. My engine cranes naturally on an angle like that. So what I'm doing is removing the bolt and bringing this forward till it's perfectly level. Then I won't have to screw around for doing 3 engines, because I'm gonna be doing 3 engines like this. So I want to get it easily levelable. So that's the plan. I'm gonna just grind that smooth, weld where it's perfectly level, and then put my engine back on. I literally just picked the engine up and put it on my table. That's how light these things are. It's awesome. All right, check it out. She's perfectly level now. So what I'll be able to do is just roll. Since I've got it leveled this way, I can just rotate for the other way. So bringing this up and then check. So that I just welded this way and that way, and that's very good. I'll be able to adjust that just by where I am at the floor. And then I'll be able to easily adjust the left and right. Bing, bang, boom. So this is level enough to go at it right now. Right where I got it. But then when I'm done with that, all I do is spin this, and then I can do this one. So that's gonna be super easy. I just saved myself probably a bunch of headache, because I'm gonna do 3 of these engines. All right guys, so this engine is completely ready to go for the epoxy. I'm waiting on the epoxy and going to the store and get the salt and the bag and everything to mix it. So I'm going to continue on and do this engine over here. So I'm doing 2 engines. I'll take all the pistons out and then tape it off and do the exact same as I did on that. Okay, she's all taped up. I've got my epoxy ready to go. This is Chris's setup. I will actually put a link in the description on what he sells. He actually gave me a sweet deal on 3 of these. So I'm going to do 2 blocks at the same time. I'm gonna do this block and this block. And this stuff has been proven to 1400 horsepower, so it's going to work. You use special coolant, AKA the green stuff. I'm gonna level both of my engines out, this one and that one. And then I'm gonna start pouring in the sugar. That is going to be my base so it doesn't go deep, because we just want the epoxy on the top 3/4 of the deck, because that's where the most cylinder pressure is. And you also still want coolant to run through it, and you drill holes in the top of it so coolant still goes to the head and still cools around the top of the cylinders. This is a proven thing, and I think it'll be absolutely fine. Definitely never been done to these engines ever before, so this is cool. I'm the first, and I'm doing some little testing and trialing and how much power I can get out of these silly little blocks. So let's get it. Definitely got the turbo set up for it, that is for sure. Okay, engine number 1, we're level this way and that way. So like I told you before, we can't do both sides at the same time. This has to be level and drop and poured and then completely dry before I can do the other side. Then this guy was much easier to level because I actually modified my engine crane to be level. So I literally cut and welded and got it so this is a 90, and then I can just have to rotate from here. So we are good to go. All right, so I'm gonna pour a bunch of sugar into this Ziploc bag, and then I'm gonna use it like a pastry kind of deal and cut the end, and then I can just guide it into the cylinder walls just like I needed to. So I'm gonna do that, simple, sweet. I'm gonna also mix the epoxy the same way. All right, guys, I've got everything leveled out, blocks level, sugars level. It's down 3/4 of an inch the entire way of the jacket, all the way around. So now I'm gonna mix my epoxy, pour it in, and let it cure for 8 hours at least. It needs to be at least 60 Fahrenheit in here, 20 degrees. We got it at 72 degrees, so that's just about 21 Celsius. So let's go, let's pour this in. So that is going to make the top of my engine block much stronger because there's a lot of combustion going around in here, especially with the increased power. If this engine makes 600 horsepower, it's gonna be making 100 horsepower per cylinder. So it's gonna wanna literally crack open like that, right? And there's zero support on the outside. That's why I'm doing this, to get that extra rigidity, because the epoxy hardens just as hard as steel, and it's literally like a custom plate is modified at the top, but it's very cheap, very quick, and it's easy to do. So let's do it. This engine's done on the right side, and so is this one. So I'm gonna wait a bit until it starts to solidify, and then I'll take off my tape and make sure there's no blue actually higher than the deck surface. And if I have to, I'll scrape some off or whatever. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Okay, it's been about an hour, so I'm going to pull off the tape and see how it looks. Okay, so this has been 20 hours after drying, and now I'll be able to turn it and do this side, because you can't do both sides of the V, because if I spun this and this was dry, or if this wasn't dry, it would literally pour out of the block. That would not be good. So I'm gonna do that in a second, but let's look at this. This turned out freaking amazing. This epoxy stuff is wild, and it is hard as rocks. Well, I shouldn't even say rocks. It's literally as hard as steel. It has the same expansion rate as steel / aluminum. I think more or less aluminum expansion rate. So if the cylinder expands, this should expand at the same rate. That's the idea of it, and I'm pretty pumped about this, guys. So once I'm completely done this tomorrow, because tonight I'm going to do this side of the epoxy, and then tomorrow I can literally spray a hose into here, get all the salt and sugar out of the ports when you saw me fill it, and then it's done, other than drilling holes where the coolant goes through the block to the head. So definitely making moves here. I'm pretty pumped. And obviously this one over here turned out the same. I did a really, really nice job on it, that's for sure. Seamless, good to go. Can't freaking wait to assemble all these engines. There's one there, and there's one right there. Okay, so I got the sugar in, everything's level here. This one over here was like stupid hard to get level. So I've got it on a couple wrenches here, a few pieces of wood. She's stuffed and she's ready to go though. Let's get it. Let's freaking get it. I'm almost done. I'll let it dry overnight once it's done. Okay, she's completely dry. I did a much better side even compared to this side. So what I did was I actually had it completely level, if not a little high, poured. And then when it dries, it actually ends up a little bit concave because it shrinks a bit. So this one's a little bit more concave than this one. This one's nearly flat. And nothing protrudes. I did an excellent job on this round. Just goes with experience with anything really, right? So let's see how this one did. Same thing, really, really nice. Awesome. The next step is get a brand new head gasket and put it on and mark the coolant holes. See how there's holes around the entire bores? So those will be all drilled. But I will not drill them to the full diameter they're at right now because you want the most rigidity possible. And for some reason on these engines, all of them are different sizes. That one's an 1/8, that one's like quarter, that one's quarter, 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 quarter. Really weird. But anyways, I'm going to be drilling them at 1/8. Simple as that. It says it in the instructions. So I'll mark all of them with the Sharpie and then drill an 1/8. I gotta make sure I don't let the actual drill bit hit the side of the water jacket on the outside or the cylinder, because it actually makes this whole process not even worth doing because it breaks the actual full around epoxy effect kind of deal. Does that make sense? It makes it a weak point. We don't want any weak points. So run an 1/8 through and call her a day. Just gotta be very careful. Okay guys, I've got all my holes drilled. Did a very good job in my opinion. Everything looks stellar. This is gonna make this so much stronger. Like you can literally see how much stronger it made. Cause like this was all literally open. Look at that. That's gonna be wild. Very, very exciting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my vacuum right here. This is the water jacket where it goes and gives coolant to all this. I'm gonna just suck as much of the salt I can or sugar I can out because I don't really want to have to run water through it, or at least I'll run the least amount of water through it as possible because I really don't want to get the cylinders wet and the crank wet and everything. So I'm just going to do the vacuum and see if I can get it out. Like if I can plug holes with tape so I can get more vacuum if these two are open and all these other ones are shut and I'm sucking through here, it'll most likely get most of it, right? Let's see how much sugar is in the vacuum. I've had it running for about 5-10 minutes and I've been messing around with plug-in holes and adding compressed air to it. I bet there's gonna be a pile of sugar in here because I have this fully sealed. Oh yeah, look at all that. That's probably like 70%, I would say. This episode is sponsored by Oxido. LED lights for your car. It makes it basically twice as bright, but it's not going to shoot up like a HID. These are LEDs, much better. And I'm going to install them into the Jetta. So here's a before shot. Just unplug the old one and plug in the new one. It's a huge LED bulb. And then this is after. It's literally blinding, but it doesn't go high. Like, it won't blind other people, but she's definitely way brighter. All right, guys, so that is how she's gonna be. She's all drilled, ready to go 100%. All the sugar is out. And that's it. I'm ready to put the heads on and see what this engine is going to do for power. So I'm aiming for a max of 600 wheel and a minimum of 500. So I will not stop until it makes 500 to the wheels. So that'll be super. Between two of these engines, I will be making 1,000 wheel horsepower all-wheel drive. Let's go. All right, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to get merch. Link below for merchandise.